Hi, everyone. Again, thanks for having us. We're very, very excited for the Global Assembly as Defend Our Democracy. It's been something that has been in the works for over a year now at this point. And it's very exciting to finally see it coming together. And we're only 1 month away, which is crazy to think of. So I've got a few thoughts, but most of them are written down on behalf of DoD. And I think it's quite important in different ways. So as DoD, me in particular, earlier, last week, a 19-year-old Shaban al-Dalu, an engineer student in Gaza, was burnt alive in his tent while connected to an IV drip. He was killed in an Israeli bomb blast in a hospital, and the images of him writhing in flames engulfed him were shared worldwide. As a young South African, it rekindles memories of another young man, Hector Peterson, just 13 years old in 1976, taken to the streets in a peaceful protest by school children. Peterson was amongst those shot dead by the apartheid police. The image of his body being carried by his sister and fellow school pupil was published in other parts of the world, but South Africans at the time remained largely unaware of it. Today, it stands part of the Hector Peterson Memorial in Soweto for all to see. It also reminds me of just earlier this year, activists in Kenya actively fighting for the right to participate in their democracy and being shot down in a democratic country for voicing their opinions. And if it wasn't for the young activists there, that a lot of them also wouldn't have been heard. I raise these examples because they're relevant for the moment that the world finds itself in. It's a world characterized by the rise of proto-fascist political parties, alarming incidences of racism and xenophobia, growing concerns of hunger, famine, and climate-related disasters, corruption and organized crime, war, conflict, and worse off in Palestine, genocide and apartheid. Despite the immense gains made through democracy in various countries around the world, there is ample evidence that democracy and democratic practices cannot be taken for granted. In November this year, Defend Our Democracy will be supporting the 12th Global Assembly of the World Movement for Democracy. The assembly will be held in South Africa as it marks 30 years of democracy. For our organization, it presents an important moment, an opportunity to bring together democracy activists from around the globe to put our minds together on how to enhance and protect the gains of democracy. South Africans often think we are exceptional when it comes to democratic building, when in fact, many countries have been doing it, and there's many lessons that we can share with others and that we can learn from others. And I think this platform becomes that important space for South African activists to really engage with the rest of the globe, to really get a sense of where is the world going at this current stage. Especially within the context of a South African democracy that has the lowest voter turnout in its electoral history after the 2024 elections, which has indicated that young people are becoming disillusioned about our democracy. This is complemented by a worrying trend in our country that 2/3 of South Africans would be willing to forego democracy if they were able to have an authoritarian leader who would get the job done. So in all of this, how do we reinvigorate general interest and in particular youth interest in democracy? Well, for DoD, this can only happen if the discussions and debates that we have about democracy are honest and frank. We cannot talk about democracy globally or in South Africa in the abstract. It should be tangible, it should be real. Democracy and its principles of justice, accountability, transparency, and the delivery of services must mean something practically for people's everyday lives. And in South Africa, democracy must come to mean the implementation of our constitution and to end corruption and state capture, provide services for our people, create the jobs for the unemployed, and create leaders who are accountable. It must mean a better way of life and more opportunities so that a 13-year-old school children today in Soweto do not have to worry about where their next meal may be coming from or whether in a few years, even while they live in a democracy, they wouldn't be able to access an education at a university level or get a job that allows them to make ends meet. For 19-year-old Shaban al-Dalu, the promise of freedom, democracy, and sovereignty was an empty one. In a world where universal human rights should be the underpinning of a democratic order, he has failed along with thousands of others in Palestine, Sudan, Myanmar, Ukraine, and Western Sahara. We hope that the Global Assembly this year ensures that discussions about democracy focuses not only on protecting democratic gains, but also about holding accountable those who violate democratic principles and our human rights. Our discussions, which I'm very excited for, at this year's Global Assembly, must help turn the tide against growing threats to democracy, but must also ultimately come to mean something for many